Good morning. Who's that white-haired little guy up there, huh? I'm Brian Henry. I grew up in this church. That's my little sis rocking over there today. Wasn't she good? Thank you, Darla. It's always a treat to come home. I love it. 8 of us, my siblings, if you don't know who I am, Evan, my brother, Tom. I won't mention Tom Fair. He's my brother-in-law. Married to Darla, and then Paula and Alan. Anyway, it's great. We had a fun time last night. We laughed till it felt like midnight. We just had so much fun. But it's great coming home to family. I love your new marquee sign. Isn't that awesome? I love meeting Lucas this morning. You are blessed. I say this is a rocking church. Yeah. You know what the best part of coming home, though? And walking out in the foyer, and I don't know half of you. That's cool. That's cool. Maybe, I don't know, a third of you. The ones I know are white-haired. No, sorry, Dan. But it is great to be back home. I just love it. And thank Tim for inviting me to come back. Does anybody know what one of these is? This is an age test, okay? I know how old you are if you know what this is, okay? How many still have one in your glove box? You're going to admit it, huh? I know your age. I still have some in my glove box, and yet we hardly ever use them. We use that GPS thing. I love it. And when I'd use it back here, come home, and Mom, remember Wilda, she would just sit there in the car. I just can't believe that thing. I just can't believe. How does it know? How does it know where we're at? And exact time we're going to arrive. GPS pretty cool, huh? I like it. I like Waze. My grandsons, if you don't know Waze, you can put other voices on there. So my grandsons put their voices on Waze. And so the 13-year-old got on there. Popo, please. Popo, Papa, slow down. That kind of stuff's on Mars. So I like using GPS. The other day I was in Milwaukee. I live about 35 miles south of Milwaukee in Wisconsin. And I was in a place I was very unfamiliar with in Milwaukee. So I turned on Google Maps. And I head home. I get to the interstate, and I just didn't bother turning it off, though I know where I'm going. And a little bit later, it pops up, and it says, get off at KR. That's a county road. And I'm like, yeah, right. I don't get off at KR. I've driven this how many times? You don't get off at KR, you stupid thing. Should I turn it off? Until about 3 more miles down the road. I just barely yanked off to KR because for the next 3 miles, there was 4 lanes of semis and cars blocked. And suddenly I realized GPS knows what they're doing, huh? It was kind of hard on the pride, because who am I to turn off at KR? Well, GPS doesn't always know. Get that photo up there? I love this photo I saw a while back. Road closed ahead, GPS is wrong. Because GPS isn't always right, are they? You never know where it's going to take you, or you end up sometimes. That's what I want to talk about today, but it's not the GPS in your car, your truck. It's God's GPS. Call it what you want, God's positioning system, God's planning system. I don't know. How would life be different if we totally turned on that GPS every day? I know we do for the most part, but there are times we screw things up so bad because we don't turn on God's GPS. We need someone guiding us. Back in my church, we say, amen, whatever you want. But we do, okay. We need GPS. Without it, there's devastation. We make unbelievable mistakes, whether it's planning a move, a house to buy, what college to go to, what job to take, the interview, or that surgery, do we do it or not? How dare we try it without God's planning system, God's positioning system, whatever you want to call it. So I wanted to look at just a few verses today from Proverbs, if you want to head there. You may know it from memory. And if us guys are even willing to admit we've ever been to Hobby Lobby, you've probably seen it on a plaque there. Or someone's bought it for you, the words from Proverbs 3. Before we read them, I want to remind you who wrote these words. Solomon was the richest, wisest man in the world. I didn't say Donald Trump. I said Solomon. He was the richest, wisest man in the world ever. Hey, turn to your neighbor right there and just tell him he was the richest and wisest. Go ahead. Out loud. Because you need to be reminded, here's the wisest man in all the world giving advice through most of the book of Proverbs to his son or sons. That's why I often suggest the dads to read through Proverbs numerous times with their kids as they're growing up. But Solomon, the richest, wisest man in the world, shares teachings, shares guidelines, shares routes or roads to take in life and roads to avoid or don't take. That's what Proverbs is filled with. And early on in the book, in Proverbs 3, verses 5 to 8, are these familiar words, I think sometimes too familiar. So we're going to spend a little time there today. It's chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with what? All your heart. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. God's Google Maps, if you want to call it here and put it in the margin of your Bible. You don't write in your Bible, I write everything in my Bible. But Proverbs 3, it's God's positioning system that Solomon, as a dad, is trying to pass on to his son. And he's basically saying God's Google Maps require complete trust. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. We make decisions every day. Some of them are very big, some of them are very little. Some we don't have to stop and pray, Lord, should I buy the red truck or the blue one? You know, he's okay with that. But there's so many decisions that affect our life. We make little ones of what car to buy, what restaurant to go to, where you're going to go eat lunch today. We trust the water department. We trust the chef at the restaurant. But how do we really make the decisions that really count? Is it just info gathering? Do we Google it? Do we ask advice from others? Yeah, all that's probably good. Do we just guess sometime? No. Is it good intent? No. Trust the Lord with all your heart. Isn't it interesting that he said, trust the Lord with all your heart, and he didn't say with your head? Trust the Lord with all your heart, not head. Because it will look stupid sometimes. Because I'll just give you what the word really means. Literally in the Hebrew back then, the word trust meant to literally stretch oneself out on top of your full weight. To just, your full weight, submit, subject, put yourself, and by the way, I thought of doing that, just going face first in front of you here, but I'm getting old. I probably wouldn't be able to get back up, okay? But I thought of doing that. Because that's what trust means. It means submission, to give yourself totally. So rather than fall on face, this is the closest one I came to. It's trusting that, our God. It's submitting, humbly submitting to his answer, his will. Trust the Lord with all your heart. Your head probably said, that's stupid. That's crazy. Trust the Lord with all your heart, to stretch one's full weight upon, putting one's whole self upon, submitting to his way. It'd be like the little 4-year-old that's in their second-story house window, and the house is burning and blazing away, and dad is down below telling the 4-year-old to jump, and the kid doesn't want to jump. And it takes how much convincing before that 4-year-old would totally subject himself, submit, and trust dad to catch him. That's what this word submission means here. Full weight, a belief in God that he is able, can and will do the best for me and guide me the best route. Trust also means not just submission. It means, I call it playing second fiddle. You know what playing second fiddle is? By the way, they say the hardest instrument to play in the orchestra is second fiddle. Fiddle's a violin, if you didn't know that. But by the way, I grew up in this town. I played band here in North Liberty High School when it was in town. I played trombone. My whole high school career, I played second chair trombone. Man, I wanted first chair. But Tom Fair's brother, Jim Fair, he was always in first chair. And I played second chair. Second fiddle, if you want to call it that. What's second chair? What's the second fiddle mean? It means supportive, secondary, subservient. I got good news though. My senior year, I made first share. You know how I did it? Jim Fair graduated a year ahead of me. Trust is submission, humble submission, even if it looks crazy or stupid and or dangerous. But it's also willing to play second fiddle, leaning not on your own thinking and guidelines. Actually, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. The word lean there literally means what we kind of would use for this, or a walker. I'm not saying it's wrong to use them, by the way. I'll be there. I have with knee replacement, but lean not on your own. Trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Solomon, as a dad, is making it very clear it can be very dangerous to trust your own thinking alone. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Solomon knew how easy it was to be independent, do his own thing, do it my way, fix it his way without consulting God's way. Kind of like Frank Sinatra. Oh, I'm really showing my age. I did it my way. That's what Solomon understood. He screwed up a lot of things in life. Or the little 2-year-old saying, I do it, I do it, I do it. Remember, right? That's our tendency, to do it. You know what the remedy is for a self-made man? To do it my way? Submission and second fiddle. I want to always play second fiddle to God. I want to always humbly submit. Let's face the music, our individual decision making, our individual discernment may look smart. It may look close to the same as that, but our own is kind of like, Solomon said, don't do it. Trust the Lord with all your heart. Let me give you a couple examples of that. Boy, this goes way back. We built a new church about 25 years ago in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And we were choosing where we wanted to be. And several of the plots of land we were trying to buy fell through. And I had this farmer friend out in the county, literally 8 to 10 miles away from our present church, and it was across the interstate. And he offered us 10 acres free of charge. And guess what this preacher did? My own understanding, I said, no, we can't go that. That's across the interstate. Then that's 8, 10 miles away from where we're at. Now, we can't do that. That was stupid. It would be stupid to totally trust that God could take us and we move out there. Guess what we did? We moved out there. Because frankly, I was thankful I had some other godly men that had to move this minister along and say, it's okay. Let's trust God and provide. Wait, we've been there 25 years. One of the best things we ever did. Let me give you another example. A friend of mine, he's my neighbor. He's a little older than me. Yes, a lot. He's 97 next month. He helped me build my house 24 years ago. But anyway, I remember when he was in his young 90s, just a few years ago. I can tell you where I was standing in our church lobby. I'll call him Sam for now. That's not his name. But Sam wanted to go to Africa and start a well. By the way, he's a home builder, a farmer. He's put in wells. He can do anything. He wanted to go to Africa in his young 90s. I remember standing in the lobby, and I said, Sam, you know, some people are made to send people and to send money, and you got that, to do it. Why don't you just send the money to this organization? I could almost see him rolling his eyes toward me. You weak moron preacher. No, he didn't think that. But he saw this, and your reasoning, that looks, By the way, he's 97 next month. He's been to Africa 5 times. He just got back a few months ago with a walker, with 2 canes, and has, I think, put in 60 wells. Not literally, physically, every part of it. You see what I mean? I'm no different than anybody else. There are times I just blindly suggest with my understanding, leaning on just my own wisdom and advice, fail to trust because it looks dangerous. By the way, just in June, I used this same illustration at my church. And 2 weeks later, I was in the lobby, and a couple was sitting there. They're a couple years older than me. And I'll call her Sally, and she says, Brian, I was mad at you 2 weeks ago when you preached that sermon. I said, really? I thought, what did I say to offend again somebody, She says, no, I was ticked. I was very upset. And I said, why? And she says, because you stood on that stool. You just got a new knee a few months ago, and you were standing on that stool, and I was scared to death. You nervous down here? See, I was scared to death. I was so mad at you because it looked so dangerous. It looked so stupid. It looked so foolish. It looked scary. It looked unwise and very frightening. And I thought it was crazy you did it. And you know what I said to Sally? I said, that's perfect. You got the point. You got the point. Because sometimes stepping up, trusting God looks mighty stupid. It looks mighty dangerous to those around. Why would you do that? That's my point. That's what trust the Lord with all your heart is. It bypasses I don't mean to do crazy stuff, but God certainly gave us a mind, and there's many good decision-making abilities we have. But there are times we got to step on the stool, right? I'm the granddaughter, my favorite granddaughter, by the way. She just graduated from college, as did her fiance, in May. And they were planning they did get married in July, 2 months later. They both graduated from college, and she didn't have a job at all, and he was working at Chick-fil-A. You can imagine parents and grandparents' thoughts at that moment. That seemed mighty stupid, but anyway, okay? But I remember she was saying, Papa, we're getting married, and Zach doesn't have a job, and, one that can really take care of us, and he wants one in his field, I want one in my field. I said, Emma, stand up on the stool. That's all I said to her. She happened to be in church a week or two before that. Stand up on the stool, trust God. By the way, I don't want to dwell on my grandkids, but they got married in July. 2 weeks before the wedding, she got a job in her field. 2 weeks after the wedding, he was sitting in church, and they announced a particular job opening that fit his field. He's got a new job. You know why they got the new jobs? Because, they're just awesome? No, because they stood on the stool. We prayed, they prayed. I got to move on. Time's running. God's got Google Maps demand complete trust. Submission is playing second fiddle because my own understanding needs to be second fiddle. Number two, God's got Google Maps require a good connection. You ever drive through the country? Nancy and I drive through the country a lot in our convertible, out in nowhere land, and you lose cell connection. You know what it's like? Or go visit her other daughter in Nashville. We're heading through the hills sometimes of Kentucky or Tennessee, which bless them all, they're all without cell service now and then right now. But you know what it is to lose connection. You just can't connect, you can't talk, you can't. That's what's in this verse to me. Trust the Lord with all your heart. By the way, you know what all means? Trust the Lord with all your heart. Do you know what all means? All. Let's move on. Trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he'll make your path straight. In all your ways, 2 times all has been mentioned, and he says now, in all your ways, acknowledge him. That's the good connection I'm talking about. Communication with God. Trusting God daily for guidance. Asking him for him. Acknowledging him. You know the word acknowledge has a little big word in there. Knowledge. Acknowledge him. And it isn't the nod you do in the elevator of someone you don't want to talk to or in the hallway and keep walking. That's not the word acknowledge means here. In fact, the word knowledge here, is the same one that Joseph knew Mary. It's a word for intimacy. It's a word for intimate relationship. You know their will, their desires, because you're with them every day. You're talking to them every day. The closest example I have to it is marriage. My wife and I have been married long enough, like 50 years last month, that I know pretty much her feelings if I were to bring home a Corvette. I acknowledged her. By the way, I know what she likes to do for anniversary dinners. She told me several years. 1 year ago, I said, where do you want to go out to eat for our anniversary? And she said, I don't want to go out and spend $150, $200 for a fancy meal. Can we just eat out at Chick-fil-A and those kind of places the next 4 nights? So that's what we've done several years now. I also know my wife would think I've done something wrong if I brought home flowers. And to be honest, I did not buy her flowers for our anniversary of 50th last month. Because she said, buy me a blouse. I don't want flowers, they die. By the way, I did buy this great big painting with her favorite flowers she had at our wedding. Come on, aw. Isn't that cool? But why? Why did I not buy her flowers? Why did I not buy that Corvette without acknowledging the knowledge of knowing whether she would be agreement with it or not, or checking in with her? Do you care? Do you mind that I sold the house this afternoon and we're moving to Florida? No, I wouldn't do that. Because I acknowledge in an intimate relationship with her what her will is. Our eye is on, in this case, God and his word. Trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him. He will let you know. Psalm 32 says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you and watch over you. Don't be like the horse or the mule, which have no understanding, but must be controlled by bit and bridle. Or Psalm 37:5, I love this one. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. Trust in him, and he will act. I don't think your neighbor heard it. Say it with me. Trust in him, and now say that he will act preacher style, okay? Trust in him. That's Psalm 37:5. You're going to write it down. Trust God daily for his direction. Acknowledge him. What's your will, God? What do you want for me? By the way, for the little older ones in the room, you know the phrase yada, yada, yada. Seinfeld, how many years ago? Yada, yada, yada. You know what the Hebrew word here for the word acknowledge? Yada. 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 It means, yeah, I know. You know, if someone's telling you a story and you go, yada, 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 same old. You know the story. That's kind of what he's saying here. Get in the conversation with God, yada, yada, yada. Don't trust your own instincts, but trust his. Because see, our own personal GPS often, like that sign earlier on the screen says, is wrong. Our own GPS is wrong. And so the older I get, it's a big mistake for this white-haired guy to think you know it all, that I'm old enough or smart enough or experienced enough to have the right answer. We wouldn't have built that church in the right place, I don't think, if it had leaned on my understanding. I don't think there'd be 60 wells in Africa if I'd have leaned on my own understanding. Verse 7, I didn't even read to you, but it goes on to say, after he says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. He adds, don't be wise in your own eyes. It's dangerous GPSing if it's your own eyes. You know, over the years in counseling people, you try to be, it would be so easy, I'll put it this way. It would be so easy when someone's saying they're doing this and they're involved in this, and I know I shouldn't be, I know what the Bible says I shouldn't be, and it would be so easy as a preacher to say, you're what? What? You shouldn't be doing that, and preach at them, you know, negative. It's so easy to move to that mode real quick that I learned quite a few years ago to stop after they just shared what's going on in their life, how they screwed up, but they know it's wrong, but I'll just ask a question. And how's that working out for you? And how's that working out for you? You see, if we go our own way, our own GPS without checking God's, there's going to be a lot of things. And I remind them, you're free to choose. Yeah, you can do that. You're free to choose, but you're not free of the consequences. Wouldn't it be so much better to go with God's GPS? Solomon here is telling his sons, grandsons, whatever, he commands a daily connection, if you will. Checking in, asking him for his will, his input, like you would in marriage. That's the closest illustration. What they, as a spouse, feel. doing it with God for any major decision. Where did Chris go? See Chris still in the room? Oh, there you are. Chris's grandpa was a minister here in the old church building when I was a kid. I was 8th, 9th grade. S.R. Johnston. I think I've told you this. He would never tell us what S.R. was. Did I tell you that, Chris? Robert Johnson, he was, by the way. We had him out at our house one night, and finally his wife at Mom and Dad's house, us kids begging to know what S stood for. And his wife kind of said, well, I can't tell you, but it rhymes with kidney. So it's Sidney, if you didn't know. Sidney Robert Johnson. Anyway, Chris, I don't know how many times I remember, even on the front of that old church building, we'd say to your grandpa, well, we'll see you tonight, Sunday night church. And he would always say, Lord willing, Lord willing. Now, I know that's a cliche to some. I don't think it was him. It was his heart. But that stuck with me. And I think it's come right out of Solomon. He's saying, the Lord willing. Are you acknowledging what the Lord's will is in this, on this decision you're making? Solomon says, daily connection. I don't know if many of you use the Message Bible, but here's what those verses that we just read say in the Message Bible. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. It goes like this. Trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Isn't that hit you? Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and don't try to figure everything out on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do and everywhere you go, and he's the one who will keep you on track. Let me close with this. Love the Lord with all your heart. That's complete trust. That's Google Maps. That's God's position system. Love your Lord, your God, with a good connection, daily checking in with him. Let me remind you, though, that Google Maps, God's Google, reminds you and reveals the best route to his destination. You know, when we do GPS, usually what? You enter in the destination you want to go to, right? That's how life is, where I want to go. By the way, many times we put in the wrong one, or human GPS gets us the wrong place. But God's Google Maps reveals the best route to his best destination. I didn't say it's going to be the best route. It's going to be the smoothest route. It's the shortest route. Ask Noah. You know, it took 40 years, 100 years to build that ark. And reigned 40 days. Ask the Israelites who wandered, and Moses for 40 years in the wilderness, or Jesus 40 days in the desert. I'm not saying the route is always the shortest or the quickest, but God's Google Maps reveals the best route, and I'll add to the best destination. So trust God's best route. It's not cliche. It's not cliche to say the Lord willing if you're really from the heart. What's your will, God? Before we make that big decision, I'm going to trust you in it, God. The best route is not always the easiest one, the shortest one. Is there an aha in the room? You wandered around too, I'm sure. That's what we have to do, is trust God's route. And I don't mean it's cliche, because I look at it this way. God's GPS, God's guidance system is not just mechanical. It's not even just a map. It's not a particular route always. It is a relationship. And he will make the best route possible for you because of the relationship. God's GPS is not a route, a roadmap. It's a personal relationship, and he will make your paths straight. So I'm suggesting we trust his best destination too, because he may change yours. If we took a poll, how many times have we planned something in life? This is where we're going to go. This is the career we're going to go. This is the move we're going to make. This is what we're going to buy. And suddenly there's a recalculating going on. Recalculating because God seemed to close one door and open another. We may have poor judgment in that choice, what we entered on GPS, and God's got a better one. God's got a better one. In 1979, some of you say, wow, he is old. But I was married and had 2 kids living in central Illinois. And someone wanted me to move to Kenosha, Wisconsin and be their preacher. And I remember hearing that that's one of the coldest places in the Midwest because it's right on Lake Michigan. And my own understanding told me, don't go to Kenosha, Wisconsin. And I remember the parking lot I was sitting in, and I read Proverbs 3, 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. So I did it. And 45 years later, we're still in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I'm not saying I did anything. I think he did. That's what his guidance system does. Changing the route sometimes, but the best route. I hope I'm not out of line mentioning one more that's personal to some of you probably in this room. But I grew up here with a lot of friends in North Liberty, but one of them was Greg Fassett. Greg played in the band with us. He was my neighbor down the road on New Road. He was, well, about a year and a half ago, Greg got esophageal cancer and tried every treatment and even went to Mexico. And as a friend, I got on his caring bridge. You know what that is? You know, they send updates. And Greg would send an update at least weekly of how his progress is going or not going and asking for prayers. And every time, Greg would close his Caring Bridge message with 3 words: trust and obey. Trust and obey. I'd love to say he's all healed and enjoying life on this earth, but God helped him recalculate. And he died in Mexico in March, I believe, just a few months ago. And guess where his destination is? Heaven. Because he trusted and obeyed. We sang that old hymn in that old church. We're going to sing it just a little bit. When we walk with the Lord in the light of his word, what a glory he sheds on our way. While we do his will, he abides with us still, when all who will trust and obey. Now, some of you, the younger ones, thinking, boy, that's an old hymn. Well, let me just throw one a little newer. Remember, Lauren Daigle? It's on the radio all the time now. I love her song, I Will Trust in You. Probably a song that some in North Carolina and Florida and Georgia need right now, but we do too. Lauren Daigle says, she sings, when you don't move the mountains, talking to God, when you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers, as I cry out to you, I will trust. I will trust. I will trust in you. Jesus' disciples were even a little nervous when he was leaving. They were thinking they're going to be all behind this. The whole thing that Jesus came here for, it's done and over with. And you know what he said to them? John 14, we just hear it usually at funerals. But he said to all of us, and even yes, Greg Fassett, do not let your heart be troubled. If you trust in God, trust also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it weren't so, I'd have told you so. I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I'm going to prepare a place for you, I will come back to take you there. Recalculating. That's our God when we trust him. You know the way to the place, because Thomas said, where are you going? How do we know how to get there? And he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So today, I don't know what each of you may be struggling with, struggles, health issues, financial concerns, big decision you got to make. Step up on the stool, okay? Just trust God. Please don't try and just rely on your own thinking. Trust God with all your heart and lean not on your understanding. The message says it. You trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for his voice in everything you do, everywhere you go. And he's the one who will keep you on track. So start your day a little different tomorrow. You plan it all out. I'm a 3x5 card guy. I got to plan everything out. Before you plan it all out, get on the stool first, okay? Consult. Acknowledge him. In all your ways, acknowledge him. Well, Lord, what do you think? Should we, shouldn't we? Start your day a little different. If you need to borrow somebody's step stool, might even try it. Lord, I thank you for this. This is my family, my church family. Many of them I don't even know, but it's good to be back home. And I pray that they have their own stories to pass around the dinner table, whether it's today or in another few months or a year, that we pass on to kids and grandkids when we look back and see that you changed the route, that you planned it for us because we took the time to step on a stool of trusting you with our heart, even when it seems so crazy, so stupid, or so dangerous. May our decision-making be different as all been here today, and I thank you and ask it all in Jesus' name. Let's trust.